Valentine's Day. I had to come and visit you for Valentine's Day because you guys are my Valentines too. It's still nice to have the romance, your partner bringing you a flower or an orchid, but it's still nice just to have the love of Valentine's Day. So that's what I'm going with today. Now today, and Maggie's in today because we love her. So today I want to talk about problems with your pots holding too much water, and then what happens is the water is sitting at the bottom, even if it's in bark, but whatever pot, if the bottom is quite flat and there's no holes down near the bottom, the water will, sometimes even the shape of the bottom does not, the water doesn't shed into one hole like it should. And many reasons, but sometimes some pots, when they have a big flat bottom, they do not drain properly. And if you have trouble with your orchids rotting, even in bark, I think I would start to look at the pot. And I want to explain a few things about the pots and the water flow, because I have even noticed it in one of mine. I want to show you that one. Okay. Now, this pot, this is Moonglow, and I have had some trouble. It's a big pot, but if you notice, the holes are smaller. So with the smaller holes, I prefer the 1/2 inch now. And when Moonglow comes out of this pot, we'll be changing this to bigger holes. Jack will be. So what happens is the bottom of this pot is raised, and there's only one hole on the bottom. And you see, if your holes are bigger, it goes down to the bottom. Now the only way that water is going to drain from under these holes is through that bottom hole. And if for any reason that bottom hole is plugged, you're going to have sitting water. The bark will stay damp. And if you don't notice this, if you're not checking your pots, I always say check your pots. And if you check your pots and you find, like watering day for me is Wednesday. I try to keep it on Wednesday. And I've noticed that with that, and my bark is always dry on the top because I have nothing there except the bark. And my humidity hasn't been much above 40 for most of the winter because of the heating system, the cold outside. So they dry on the top, and with the big holes they dry, and this is good. This is good. Airflow is good. But at the bottom of some pots, because the holes are smaller, they're above the bottom surface. Maybe that one hole isn't enough. Maybe it's plugged with bark. Maybe there's something else in the way. And that water is not draining off the bottom. Now, the roots go down, and over time, that when the bark starts to absorb a lot of water, it seems to grow and raise up in the pot, and it stays damp. And if the roots are going down into that, they're not going to like it. It's going to, because it's not getting airflow, it's going to start to decay quicker down at the bottom, and it's going to probably end up rotting your roots. And then once that rot starts to take place, it will grow up into your pot. It will lead to further up the root. Maybe that root's near another root. So what you really need is good drainage right through your pots. And I want to explain why the traffic cones and the pots shaped like that and placing your holes works. It's better to be dry. We know that from the 2 orchids I left all summer in the greenhouse. If they have enough humidity, even though my humidity with all my misters on, because those misters can't keep the humidity for the whole house, but the area the orchids are in is better than the rest of the house. So even though your humidity, like mine, is not perfect, and even though I have all bark, some lava rock in some, my orchids are still happy because they're not sitting in anything wet. That's why quite often, if you have a wet bed of rock or gravel or beads, glass beads, whatever you have under your orchids, you still have to raise them over that, because the water just from that will seep up into your pot. The same as water sitting on the bottom of the inside of your pot. So if you always check your pot on watering day, you can probably catch this happening. But if it goes on too long, it could cause the loss of your orchid. So let's discuss a few pots and why it's working for me. Traffic cones. Traffic cones come in many sizes, and I have the bigger ones like these, and I have the medium size that, let's bring this forward. I have this one that I just repotted, and this is a medium size. This is a, no, this was fair, no, this was big, I'm lying. This is the big one, and I'm going to explain why these are working so good. So I'm just going to put this back here. Now, where's the one? Can't even find my own orchid. Okay, here's a medium one. I think I left the other one in the window. I'll have to run and get it. Okay, here's a medium one. I do just as well with the medium ones as the big ones. And if you want to try a traffic cone, you could always start with medium. And I'm going to explain why it works. Now, just 1 second. Let's see if I left that in here. I always forget something. There it is. Here I am. Okay, this is the one I just put in. And it's one I just got a while ago, so it's still adjusting. And it's a smaller one. It's rubber. The rubber ones are nice. So now I'm going to explain why these are working. Whether they're the small ones or whether they're the bigger ones. I took Maggie's chair. Okay, let's put this over here. So, the big ones, the medium ones, and the small ones. Okay, for the first reason, I have 1/2-inch holes. All of them have 1/2-inch holes. Now, this one has just started to spike because it was in spike last fall. And I let the roots come out, because what will happen is when they do need repotted, which isn't too quickly because of the good airflow. And also, what's happening is we have 1/2-inch holes. On some of them, they go right to where the bark ends. Now, let me explain this. On this one, the bark ends here, so it's kind of like a large pot. And then down here, there's nothing. There's no air holes on this one down here, but what it is, so they don't soak. They have never soaked. None of my big traffic cones have ever soaked, or the medium ones. I put them in the shower. I give them a good rinse off and water good. But what happens is there's a screen in here. There's no bottom of the traffic cone. There's lots of air holes. Some of my pots, they go right to the bottom, some not. And on the bottom, this is just as soon as you water, it goes right through. There's nowhere for that water to settle. Now this one holds a little more humidity because the holes don't go right to the bottom. So it's holding a little more humidity inside the pot, but still no water settles anywhere other than what the bark might absorb or in between the bark spaces. So what happens is the big part of the pot, the top of the pot that dries first, the circumference of the pot is much bigger. And as it goes down to where there's more likelihood of, in most pots, to hold water, it gets narrower. Therefore, the air from all sides is getting in easier, and it gets narrower and narrower. Therefore, it's got the holes to dry out better. It's less area for them to travel, and all the water, nothing settles. There's no place for it to settle because there's screens. So, now some of these, like this one, the holes go right to the bottom and the screen is at the bottom. But because the holes are in a smaller circumference, this is drying. There's no mucky bottom to these pots at all. Now, the one I just did, and I just moved these orchids. Don't be surprised if one day I have mine all in traffic cones. Don't be surprised. So the holes go right to the bottom, and the screen is right about here. That's where the screen is. The rest is still getting good airflow, and it's getting good water flow. It's just bark. Water can never set. And it's kind of these traffic cones are kind of a rubbery consistency. So they do hold the humidity in, but they also have good flow. So because of the shape, there's no bottom on these pots. Anything with a bottom is going to hold water even more. Now let's discuss the sewer pot. Now I've got this new sewer pot. It was a double one, and there's a screen in the bottom. There is no bottom to the sewer pots. You can pick these up all over. They're a little different, but fun. Jack enjoyed doing them, and he did this first one many years ago. There is no bottom. There is a screen. Water cannot stay in those pots. So they are also, this one, tapering in somewhat. There's two plants. The air holes are big. Now, I know until your orchids get used to a drier lifestyle, they do sulk. And at first, after repotting and making sure that you've soaked your bark for 3 days and nights with a little calmite, a little seaweed extract, then you pot up your orchid. You've changed from completely moss, and you might be using bark with mica or a lava rock, something else in it, but the drainage is going right through. So they do shock for a while, but I found since the long soaking of the bark, and quite often you hear on the internet, well, let them dry out, don't water them too much right after repotting. I found out that if I give for the first maybe 2 months an extra watering, halfway to my next watering, just a run through, not a soak, I have found that they have taken less shock that way. So that's something about these sewer pots. And let's put that in there. And let's talk about, you know, I still haven't changed the media on these cocoa fibers. So they were just steel baskets, wire baskets that I made out of a flat rolled sheet of cocoa fiber. And why have they done so good in these? Because they've all done good. I have, whenever I picked them up for $1 at a garage sale, there was tea lights in. I pull the tea light out. There is full water flow with these. You replace your bark less often when that bark isn't sitting damp. And water flow goes right through. They've been happy in these. And I have 3. Whenever I see these, I pick them up. And I'm still really happy with them. So I guess the main thing I'm trying to explain is holes and water flow. So the main, and that's why you want to check your pots often, is water flow. Now, the other ones that I started to really like, now Marianne was nice enough to give me a couple of these cocoa fiber baskets. They're hanging baskets. They have a long chain. I've got it shortened here. But once you've got them, you can move them wherever you want. You can hang them by a little hook from your traffic cone wires. I do that in the summer a lot. And they are dry. I have switched what these are in. They are in bark too. Now, because it's smaller, I have watered this. I just give it a quick run through halfway between watering day because they're smaller. My other ones are smaller. They're all looking good, but we still have no way that water can sit. But the cocoa fiber can stay damp and humid, and that humidity on the sides encourages the roots to grow down. But no water is sitting. So I think that's the other reason that I like these. And if you're a person that kind of looks at them and this is our biggest mistake, and I've done it. I've done it before. And sometimes you're tempted. You look, it's in bark, and you think, oh, I need to water it. I'll just give it a little. And then another day, oh, I'll get... No. Let it get used to. Those new roots will grow, and they will search out that humidity. And the roots, I've read in many places that are growing in bark, are very hardy. They can withstand, maybe you're sick, maybe you can't water, maybe you have to leave them another week. It's not like you're leaving them sitting in something soaking wet. They'll survive. They have, mine have. They surprised me. So that's the other type of pot. Now, these pots are really nice too. And why they work? Well, the holes go right to the bottom. Now, I knocked off the bottom tray on some of mine because I always had it tilted on its side on watering day to make sure the water wasn't sitting high in this drain. But these are the same thing, lots of airflow. The shape of the pot is getting less, but the holes are still a good size. I still like these pots, and I pick them up at garage sales when I see them. But if I get too small, I just prefer them to be no smaller than this one. Now this one I knocked the tray off because I found the water was sitting in there too much. Plus the holes were bigger. But there is good growth in here. You can see it. There's very good root growth. It's healthy. And so those pots are good. So it's all an experiment. Of course, The one in that is the base of a heater, and it's plastic, the red one. And Jack made the stand that it's sitting in just out of that drop wire, barbed wire drop wire they use in fencing to lock the fence in place or something, I don't know. But it's real cheap, it does not rust, and I paint it. He makes the stands out of them, and it works. Now some of these stands, I had two, when you put the thing that holds the traffic on upside down, it's for topiaries and roses to hold them in place, and they stick in. And I had some outside when I first started with the traffic cones, and they were all rusty, and I turned them upside down, and I thought, well, they fit a traffic cone. And so I started, Jack made just a stand to hold the topiary upside down, put the traffic cone in, and then I looked for little things to hold them up, and we've done different things. This one here is a topiary inside a little stand. I think it was a candle stand I picked up. This, Jack made the stand, but it's a topiary upside down holding the cone. And same with these. That's what we started out with. And I want to show you something. Now, you that cannot get into the community because of modern technology, they haven't, my tablet won't let me into the community, for instance. I can get into the home page, but I can't get into the community where I post pictures that everybody, if you want me to post something for everybody else to see or read, carolynorchidfriends @gmail.com. That's my email. I'll put it down below in the description. Anyway, Marcia, she had some trouble with the simple clear pots, and she lost a few orchids. I forget how many, because the water was settling in the bottom. And she liked the shape of the traffic cones. And I have to show you a picture now. I posted this on the community, and I printed a picture from there because she was very lot of thinking. The pots look nice. They're a nice size. They're not rubber. They appear to be porcelain. And we're going to talk, well, those will not cause a problem with holding moisture and why. And she has this stand, and I'm going to show you a close-up. And I see she took a couple of the glass shelves off so that when they're in bloom they can go through, and when they're not, and she can get more orchids on this shelf. And I want to show you a close-up because these pots that she got are shaped like traffic cones. They have holes right to the bottom. Now I'm not sure if she drilled those holes or they came pre-drilled, but they go right to the bottom of the pot, and they sit on little tiny saucers. So I want you to, now if you can pause and stop and look at this. I'll just go up slow. See where she took a shelf out just for while they're in bloom. Now, the shape of them, if you tend to have trouble with water sitting, there you got holes to the bottom. The air is getting into the bottom. Now, if those holes were this far from the bottom, they still could stay down because there's no airflow. So, and it has a small bottom, but very little, because the drain hole is going to drain that tiny little area. So I wanted to show you that. I think they're great looking pots. Not sure where she found them, but what a deal. And if someone drilled these holes for her, hey, they deserve an award. That's a lot of drilling because there's a lot of holes. Perfect. So something to think about if you tend to have trouble with your orchids even rotting in bark, because they shouldn't really, that shouldn't happen. So anyway, it is snowing here today. It's been warming up to the 40s in the daytime with lots of blue sky for the last probably week. And so it was so nice yesterday, I decided to go out to the greenhouse and get everything ready for when I start seeds, which is sometimes the very end of February. So I went out and I moved all my geraniums all around on the floor on mats, so that when I water them, they're all think it's spring, they're all getting ready for spring, because I need the top of the tables for my seeds. And then years ago, when we first got the greenhouse at the wholesale club where I was working, they had these boot trays on sale, and they made great things to hold the pots and pots to sit on, so water isn't dripping everywhere. So I line them up in the top of my tables, and then every fall when I put all my, or every spring when I put all my seeds out in the garden, I always wash and let the containers dry, so that I'm not putting away anything dirty that can get nasty, and I don't have to put my seeds back in dirty pots. So I made sure after I've done, I throw them all out in the grass and hose them all down and clean them up, let them dry, stack them all up, and I put them in a big cutlery bin that I have, and I just sit them in the greenhouse. Now I have a big garbage can in the greenhouse that I keep it's Pro Mix, and it's for seedlings starting, and I keep it full. We fill it up every fall, and then one day, like yesterday, I say, okay, I think I'll go get the pots ready. So I have one of those big cutlery bins, and I put a bunch of soil in, and then I put a bunch of water, and I'm still, though I don't have running water all winter, and the pond is where I water from all winter. I haven't had to refill the pond. It lasts all winter. It goes down slowly, and if the humidity is high, the dehumidifier will take the water out of the air and put it in the pond, so it does get refreshed, and that's my water source, and still is till we can turn running water on. So I've got this big cutlery bin full of dry dirt, so then I pour in a bunch of water and I mix it all up. Almost like mud pies, but not wet like mud pies, more like granola with kind of lumpy and damp, but not wet. And then I just fill up all my pots, line them all up, no seeds, and I just let them sit there till I'm ready. And then one day I think I'll go plant tomatoes. I just go out and put the seeds in. So one day we'll go out there, and maybe when I'm planting some seeds and see what I've done. But I wanted to share, you know, if you do it in stages like that, it's so simple. It's not like a lot of work. It didn't take me very long, because I've got an organized plan, and that's how I do it. So I am getting ready for spring, and then it's snowing today. So I'm glad I went out and did it yesterday. So I guess that's about all that's really been happening. I've been working on another painting, and when this one's done, that's it, because there's too much work going to be happening in early spring. So I hope you're having a great Valentine's Day, and share the love. That's what Valentine's about. It doesn't have to be for a romantic partner. It can be for anyone in your life you're thankful for. And I'm thankful for you guys, because you helped get me through this 2 years of what we've been going through, and you still help me. I have some wonderful friends I've met, and it's a win-win situation. And I guess that's about all I wanted to say, and I hope you find this useful for you. Thank you.